Hi guys, today we're talking about my January TBR. It's the first TBR of 2023. Can't believe it's here already. I want to start off the year by finishing some books in series and duologies that I've already started. So this is all going to be about finishing up and catching up to sort of get the year off on a good note. Coming up in January, we have Mysteries of Thorn Manor by Margaret Rogerson. This is kind of a standalone sequel novella to Sorcery of Thorns, which came out a few years ago. I have loved that one. It's very cozy, magical library vibes. We follow Elizabeth and Nathaniel is a sorcerer, and Elizabeth is a librarian who protects these magical grimoires. Their adventure in their standalone book was so good, and I think this one is kind of more of like a low stakes, cute vibe. This is the first sequel I think that Margaret Rogerson has done to any of her stories, so I'm really looking forward to that. I love the characters in this one. There's also a demon named Silas who was definitely the MVP of the first book, so curious to see how he is involved in it as well. But loved this series. I will pretty much read anything Margaret Rogerson puts out, but I'm really excited that this is a follow up to a book that I loved so much. And then also coming out in January, we have The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is the beginning, I think, of a sequel series to Folk of the Air. We follow Oak, who's now a teenager, and he's the little brother of Jude from the first book. He's a prince, but I think he was raised more in like the mortal world, so I'm interested in his adventure. There's also a princess who we were introduced to, I think, in book 3, Queen of Nothing. Yeah, so this is their adventure. I don't know what exactly is at stake in this book, but I'm really excited to read it. I'm so happy that Holly Black is returning to the world of Elfhame. I absolutely love this series, and I will read these characters watching paint dry, basically. And I hope we get a snippet of Carden and Jude just because I love them so much, but I do realize they're not the main characters of this series. So very excited for this one. I've pre-ordered the Barnes & Noble special edition to match my initial set of the Folk of the Air. So very excited. And I think this one comes out like the 3rd or something. So hopefully I get that pretty soon because like I cannot wait to get my hands on this book. I'm so excited to read it. That wraps up the books that I currently do not own, but let's dive into the ones that I do own because I've been hanging on to some of these for quite some time. 2020 and 2021, I started a lot of duologies and then just never finished them. A couple of them only recently had their sequels come out, but some of them have been out for a while and I have no excuse. So The Dragon's Promise is one of those ones I do sort of have an excuse for. It only came out, I think, in like July or August of this last year. And this was one of my most anticipated reads for 2022, and then I just never got around to it. I think it came out while I was in the midst of like a kind of marathon of other things, so I just couldn't quite find the time to pick this one up, but I really loved the first book in this series, Six Crimson Cranes. I enjoyed the fact that the sort of main conflict in that one did resolve, but this is like a follow-up, and I'm curious to see like how independently this one stands from the first one. I really love the characters, Shiori, Takan, and Seryu. I think Seryu is gonna get a bit more of a role in this one, at least hopefully, considering it's called The Dragon's Promise and he's a dragon. And I believe our main character Shiori is going to be traveling into like the dragon realm in this book to kind of solve a mystery that was left hanging in the last one. So I've heard kind of middling things about this one, unfortunately, but I did really like the first one. I really like Elizabeth Lim's writing, and again, the characters just really shine in this series for me. So I hope that they still play a part in this one because I love them. But yeah, very excited to get to this one. She just announced kind of like, I don't know how closely it's going to be related, but basically a Raikama origin story. And she's a character that played a big part in the first book, especially. So I'm curious to see her origins. I'm not quite sure when that one's coming out, if it's 2023 or 2024, but I definitely want to catch up on this one, so I'll be all prepared for when that one comes out. Then we have the 3rd book in the Aurelian cycle, which is Fury Song by Rosaria Munda. This is an excellent YA series that involves dragons and politics. It's kind of like Anastasia, but with dragons and also gender bent. It really does such a great job of highlighting just the gray areas of revolution, and everyone who's involved on both sides thinks that they're the good guy, basically. And this book really highlights that there are no good people in a revolution. So it's definitely very complex, and I feel like I've said this for all these books so far. I love the characters. We have just really intriguing characters and points of view. We see people who were previously peasants that this new political system has really uplifted and that they've benefited from. So they have their own reasons for supporting it. And then we have people who were basically the victims of this revolution and they were overthrown. But like, you come to see why everyone thinks the way they do. And it's so intriguing. And Rosario Munda's writing is just on another level, considering like the YA landscape. I'm not saying that like YA is bad or like super simple, but this is a diamond in the rough for sure. And I love this series. I've kind of been holding off on it because I feel like this one is going to break me. The second book was so emotional, and I really needed to like decompress from that one for a long time and read a lot of like light, fluffy books after that. I'm a little scared about this one. I feel like it can't end well. I feel very similarly to like how I did in the Poppy War series, where I was just like, I love these characters, but not all of these guys are going to end up happy. There's just no way. So their views are too in conflict with one another. So I'm very curious to see how this series wraps up. It's been one of my favorites to read so far in the last couple of years, so I need to get to this one. Then we have the sequel to We Hunt the Flame, which is We Free the Stars by Hafsa Faizal. This is also a duology. I think it's called The Sands of Arabia. It's a fantasy very inspired by like ancient Arabia, and we follow a hunter and a assassin prince character, and their paths cross sort of to the detriment of the both of them, but then they like catch feels for one another. It's very slow burn. The first book was only okay for me, but I did quite like Hafsa Faizal's writing. It's very lush and the setting is very vivid. It's just like the characters themselves didn't do a whole lot for me, and I think that's kind of why I've been dragging my feet on this one. But I am curious to see how their relationship develops and how the story sort of wraps up in this one. She has another book coming out. I think it was supposed to come out this last year, but it got pushed back for some reason, called Tempest of Tea. And that one actually sounds really cool to me. I think I've seen it described as Peaky Blinders, but like fantasy. And I'm very curious about that. So I want to wrap up her current duology, kind of catch up on her backlist. Hopefully I like this one a smidge better than the first one, though. All right, this one I've been putting off because I got spoiled on a thing that happens, and I just haven't been emotionally prepared for that to like become a reality for me. And that is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo, the sequel to Six of Crows. I picked up Six of Crows I think it was this last year, maybe earlier this year. Had such a fun time with it. I buddy read it with my friend Stephanie, and like I was listening to the audiobook as I was reading this, and the audiobook is incredible. It's a full cast, and like each of the six crows like have their own narrator and stuff. It's so good. The guy that does Kaz especially, phenomenal. But yeah, so I loved that book. I had a lot of fun. Everyone says that like the crew in that one is just like the most endearing thing about the series, and I have to agree. I think they're really well-rounded, really well fleshed out characters with a really good dynamic with one another. The last one kind of ended up on a cliffhanger. Very curious to see how that continues to develop and where we go from there. But also, again, that spoiler kind of wrecked me emotionally, and I think reading it is gonna hurt even more. So trying to prep myself for that, but the new season of the show comes out in March, and I want to catch up on like what the books have. I still have to read Shadow and Bone too, but I just jumped right into Six of Crows because why not? But yeah, so I want to be a little bit more in the right headspace for when the show comes out, and I think reading Crooked Kingdom will help me get there. And then finally, I have the complete box set of comics for V.E. Schwab's Shades of Magic series. This is kind of a prequel series that follows Kel and Rai's father. He's known as the Steel Prince as a young man, and we follow his adventures, I think, kind of in the military, but like before he becomes king. I need to refresh myself a little bit on this world. I believe the next book in the series, like the first book in the sequel series rather, comes out this year. I think she announced for October, so really excited about that. I don't think it'll have anything strictly to do with these characters, but again, it's about getting into like the headspace and refreshing yourself on the world building. And I picked these up as soon as I finished the initial Shades of Magic series, when I finished The Conjuring of Light, and I like totally intended to dive right into them. But I get in like a weird spot with graphic novels and manga where like I tend to binge them, and if I'm not actively like picking them up exclusively, I just kind of go a really long time without picking them up. So I really need to get into this because I was so excited to read these, and I need to do it. I just need to do it. And there's only 3 of them, which is pretty short for a graphic novel series. So it's very doable. I feel like I can just knock these out in a single weekend. So I have no excuse. That feels a bit ambitious, but that's my January TBR. I'm genuinely very excited about all of these, so I'm hoping that will kind of help me build momentum for this first month of the year and knock these out. And I think we're going to be starting off the year strong. I'm very excited for the reading I'm going to be doing in 2023. Taking this month to kind of just catch myself up on series is going to put me in a good space, I think, for the rest of the year. I've been feeling kind of guilty about leaving some of these hanging while starting other series, so this is gonna wrap that up nicely for me. Please let me know down below what you're planning on reading to start the year off. I'd love to hear it. If you've read any of these books, please hype me up on them. Tell me which ones I should start with, because I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Also, feel free to check out my social media down in the links below and follow my channel if you haven't already. And as always, have a lovely day.